Schools of criminological thought. So, the Asian school, it has the pre-classical school or demonological theory and the classical school or free will theory. So, first I'm going to tell you about pre-classical school or demonological theory. In this, being one of the oldest theory of the causes of crimes, based on a general belief that man by nature is simple and his actions are controlled by some superpower, a man commits crime due to the influence of some external spirit called demon or devil. Thus, an offender commits a wrongful act not because of his free will but due to the influence of some superpower. Criticism for this theory was that they considered crime and criminals as an evidence of the fact the individual was possessed of devil or demon, and the cure for which was testimony of the effectiveness of the spirit. Worships, sacrifices, and ordeal by water and fire were usually prescribed to specify the spirit and relieve the victim from its evil influence. The evolution of criminal law was yet at a rudimentary stage. Hobbes suggested that fear of punishment at the hands of monarch was a sufficient deterrent for the members of early society to keep them away from sinful acts which were synonymous to crimes. The pre-classical thinking, however, weathered away with the lapse of time and advancement of knowledge. Now, the classical school or the free will theory. So, Beccaria, the pioneer of modern criminology, laid greater emphasis on mental phenomena of the individual and attributed crime to free will of in the individual. Thus, he was much influenced by the utilitarian philosophy of his time, which placed reliance on hedonism, namely the pain and pleasure theory. Features shifted focus on the personality of an offender rather than religious fallacies and myths. The main principle of classical school of criminology are as under. First, reasoning rather than fear is responsible for behavior. Second, act rather than intent is the basis of criminality. Third, punishment through pain, humiliation, and disgrace is the principal with method to curb crime. Fourth, prevention of crime is more important than punishment. Fifth, punishment should be individualized, keeping in view the pleasure derived. It should be equal for all. 6. Arbitrary powers of judges and torturous punishments are a strict no no. Criminal law should be based on positive sanctions. Criticism: no attention to the state of mind, no distinction between first versus habitual offenders. Now comes the cartographic or ecological school. So, crimes are committed more in unfavorable circumstances and less in favorable circumstances. Thickness of population: less is sparsely populated, more is densely populated. Season: more is summer, less is winter. Natural resources: less is plentiful, more is infertile, deserted, or hilly areas. Criticism: cartographical factors can be one of the reasons, but not the only reason. Crime is more personality oriented phenomenon mentally and conduct. Conditions may change, but criminal tendencies don't change. Socialistic School. Main exponents of this school: Karl Marx and William Bonger. According to Karl Marx, crime is the result of class struggle or class conflict between the rich and the poor. Poor people commit crime to feed themselves or fulfill their bare necessities. William Bonger says, greedy and selfish nature inspire a man to do his own welfare through some way or other. Artificial scarcity, exploitation of child and women, unhealthy competition, etc., all lead to crimes. Criticism: economic aspects alone are not the cause of crime. Sudden provocation or other compelling conditions may lead to crime. White collar criminals are exception to this proposition. Economic aspects is one of the factors, but it is not the only factor. Italian or positive school. Neither free will, as suggested by classical, nor innate depravity, as suggested by neoclassical, is the real cause. Real cause is anthropological features of a criminal. Main exponents of this theory are first, Cesare Lombroso, Italian psychiatrist, laid emphasis on the fact that individual is the center point of penology. Instead of crime and punishment, classified criminals into three main categories. First, the atavist or hereditary criminals beyond reformation. Second, insane criminals commit crime due to mental disorder. Third, criminoids suffering from inferiority complex. Contribution of Lombroso, individualism, individualization, biological nature, impact of environment. However, at a later stage, Lombroso himself discontinued his theory of atavism and extended his theory to social and economic situations of criminals. Enrico Ferreri. So, besides mere biological reasons, other factors such as emotional reaction, social infirmity, and geographical conditions plays a vital role. Crime is the synthetic product of three main factors: physical or geographical, anthropological, psychological, or social. Basic purpose of any crime prevention program should be to remove conditions responsible for the crime. He classified crimes into five categories: born criminals, occasional criminals, passionate criminals, and insane criminals or habitual criminals. Garofalo's 1852 to 1934 started as a magistrate in Italian courts, rose to be Minister of Justice in 1903. He said crime is an act which offends the sentiments of pity, karuna daya in Hindi, and probity, imandari in Hindi, possessed by any average individual. Lack of pity leads to crime against person, and lack of probity leads to crime against property. Classification of criminals according to Garofali was first murderers or endemic criminals, second violent criminals affected by environmental influences such as prejudice of honor, politics, and religion. Third is criminals lacking in sentiment of probity, Baseman. Fourth is lascivious or lustful, Turkey. Advocated death, life imprisonment, or transportation and reparation, Badla ya Khashtpurti in Hindi, strongly advocated elimination of habitual offenders who were incapable of social adaptation. Then is the mental testers school. Exponents were H. Goodhart Goring, Sigmund Freud, Jean F.D. Esquirrel, and Isaac Ray, etc. Mental deficiency and animal behavior can be determined by employing psychometric tests. According to H. Goodhart, mental deficiency is almost half criminals. According to Goring, mental deficiency is a major cause except cleverness in case of fraud. Third is Psychiatrist School. Now, according to this school, imitation is the only main factors of causation of crime. Following are the methods of learning by process of imitation. First is attitude, second is differential association, third is compensation, fourth is frustration, fifth is individual differences, sixth is interaction group, seventh is membership of inactive group. Main exponents of this school: Trade, Bonlis, Prince, Van Hemel, and Montesquieu. Now, the main principles of this school are: criminal behavior is a result of some process of other behavior. Social changes which cause crimes happen due to following reasons: struggle of cultures, competition, socio-economic and political changes. Third is the higher density of population, inequitable distribution of wealth, education or employment, process of changes. Criticism. Imitation is not the only factor. Sudden provocation or other compelling circumstances could be the cause. Second, this theory is applicable in areas inhabited by criminals, at places inhabited by educated and law abiding citizens. This theory has little application. Now is the multi-factor school. So crime committed not attributable to a particular factor. According to Enrico Ferri, different causes of crime are anthropological, physical, and social. Anthropological is age, sex, civil status, profession, domicile, social rank, instruction, education, organic constitution. Physical factors are race, climate, fertility, meteoric conditions, and temperature. Social factors are density of population, immigration, public opinion, customs and religion, public order, economic and industrial conditions, agricultural and industrial production, public administration of public safety, public instruction and education, public beneficiaries, civil and penal legislation. There could be more, and this list is not exhaustive. British psychologist Dr. Cyril Burt, there is no single source of crime. White collar crimes are because of greed and not need. Violent crimes are result of revenge, lust, greed, etc.